Okay, good afternoon, members, and welcome to this hybrid meeting of Angus Council. I would remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I have agreed the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking. For any members of the public watching, please note that all the public committee reports, including details of specific recommendations, are available on the Council's website. Before we move to the agenda, there has been a deputation request submitted from the City of Brechin Pipe Band in relation to item 8. Do we agree to hear the deputation? Thank you very much. Members, I would also refer to the emergency motion that was circulated earlier today. As members are aware that the motion was not submitted in accordance with the timescales provided in Standing Order 24. However, in terms of Standing Order 10.2, I am going to rule that the motion be considered as a matter of urgency due to the time-critical nature of the request. The consultation was launched yesterday and closes on the 16th of September, and therefore it will be too late to be considered at the next meeting of this Council. I would suggest we consider this after item 4. Thank you. Mrs Forsyth, are there any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Provost, we have an apology from Councillor MacDonald. Okay,
thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest and statements of transparency. Are there any? Councillor Beattie, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. A statement of transparency in relation to item 9. Some of the parties that originally looked at the Brechin site, but I didn't give an opinion, and I'm going to stay in the meeting for that item.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beattie. Councillor Brace.
Yes, again, item 9. It's a statement of transparency. Whilst Deputy Leader of this Council, I was engaged in a lot of meetings with a lot of different groups and different individuals, a lot of whom were acquaintances of mine. There was never any financial dealings with those people in the past or the present. So it's just a statement of transparency. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Brace. Councillor Scott, thank you.
Just a statement of transparency. Yeah, lots of conversations have taken place, but I've never given an opinion with regards to item 9. Thank you.
Okay, no one else? Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, the minutes. The minutes of the submitted for approval as a correct record, the minute of meeting of this Council of the 20th of March 2025. Is the minute approved? Thank you. And B, the special meetings. They are submitted for approval as correct records, the minutes of special meetings of Angus Council of the 27th of February, 22nd of April and the 8th of May 2025. Are the minutes approved? Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is the possible exclusion of the public and press. The committee will be asked to consider in terms of Standing Order 27.2 whether the public and press should be excluded during consideration of item 9 so as to avoid the disclosure of information which is exempt in terms of Part 1 of Schedule 7A to the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Do we agree to exclude the public and press? Thank you very much. And now we will hear Councillor Doran's motion, but I will ask her first. Councillor Doran, do you have a seconder?
Yes, I do. Councillor Wise.
Okay, thank you very much, and you may speak to your motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm just going to move that over a bit. Thank you. This motion is to note that a public consultation has been launched by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, which was yesterday, regarding a change in proposals for the status of Balmossy Fire Station. And I wanted to raise this through a motion because although Balmossy Fire Station actually sits within over the Dundee boundary, it has potential impacts for Monifieth and areas of Angus. The motion notes that I will respond individually to the public consultation, expressing my opposition to the proposal for closure or downgrading of the fire station. And I want to urge all elected members to consider responding similarly. And I also wanted to ensure that there is a response from Angus Council to this consultation as it's been launched over the summer. So it delegates authority to the Chief Executive to respond to the public consultation on behalf of Angus Council. There's a slight change to point 3 because we want to include that the consultation response from Angus Council has engagement with all the elected members before it is then submitted. So just wanted to note that. I really wanted to raise the importance of it. The 2 options that are on the table would either result in closure or downgrading of the station, and the possible consequences are that there's an increase in response times to the area that Balmossy covers. Now, immediately that would be Montefieth, but it also might have impacts as far as Arbroath if Carnoustie's on-call fire engine is unavailable at that time as well. And it also potentially the closure may result in potential redundancy for on-call staff who are unable to relocate. So it's really an important issue for this area. So I just wanted to raise that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And as your seconder, Councillor Whiteside. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, I'm really happy to second this. I think it's an important issue, and of course the remit of the station at Balmossy goes far beyond response to fires. There's quite a few specialist teams located there who respond to hazmat incidences, flood response, and I'm told that the next nearest flood response team is actually in Blairgowrie, so that doesn't give much confidence. So this can affect a much wider area than just the immediate area around about Balmossy, Montefieth, etc. Not only that, the station itself, it's a co-location with the Scottish Ambulance Service, and that arrangement's been working really well, and that would be putting that at risk. The building itself has been upgraded, it's modern, it's energy efficient and doesn't require capital investment, unlike many other fire stations in the area. So I strongly support this, and I hope that Angus Council can put forward a good defence of keeping services there where they are.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for comments? Councillor Melville, thank you.
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, likewise, as a local councillor representing Montefieth and Sidlaw, I've got concern about the proposals that are on the table from the SFRS. Closure or downgrading will have a significant impact, as has been noted, not just on Montefieth, not just on Broughty Ferry, but throughout South Angus, particularly, I think, with the demand for housing in the area and also the likelihood for further housing development. Those concerns will form the basis of my response to the consultation, and I'll be voting for the motion, and I encourage colleagues to do the same.
Thank you very much, all. Yes, I'm the same. I know the station well, and as Councillor Whiteside said, it's modernised, it's been upgraded, it doesn't need any further work, unlike some. And I'm old enough to remember the old single-unit fire station in Princess Street in Montefieth, so I'm certainly going to support this motion. Anyone else? Is the motion then agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, members, agenda item number 5 is appointments to committees. The Council is advised that Councillor Stewart has intimated his resignation from the Civic Licensing Committee. Accordingly, the Council is asked to fill this vacancy. Are there any nominations? Councillor Meehan, thank you.
I would nominate Councillor Gavin Nicholl.
And a seconder, Councillor Scott, thank you. Any other nominations? Is that agreed? Thank you very much. The Council is advised that Councillor Stewart has intimated his resignation from the Angus Licensing Board. Accordingly, this Council is asked to fill the vacancy. Are there any nominations? Thank you. Councillor Meehan.
Again, Councillor Gavin Nicholl.
And a seconder, Councillor Scott. Is that agreed? Sorry, I should have asked for further nominations. Are there any other nominations? No. Okay, thank you. C is the Angus Health and Social Care Integration Joint Board proxy members. Reference is made to Article 12 of the minute of the special meeting of Angus Council of the 8th of May 2025, when Councillors Meehan, Louise Nicholl and Speed were appointed to the Angus Health and Social Care Partnership Integration Joint Board. Provision exists for a proxy to be appointed for each member of the board, and Councillors Meakin, Louise Nicholl and Speed have intimated that we'd wish to nominate proxy members as follows. Councillor Meakin and the proxy is Councillor Scott, Councillor Louise Nicholl and the proxy is Councillor Gregg, and Councillor Speed and the proxy is Councillor Cowdy. Do we agree to note this? Thank you. Voluntary Action Angus. The Council has advised that Voluntary Action Angus no longer require a council representative to sit on the Board of Trustees. Accordingly, we are asked to note the position. Do we agree to note? Okay, thank you. And the Montrose Basin Local Nature Reserve Management Committee. The Council is advised that the Constitution provides for 2 elected members of Angus Council to sit on the Montrose Basin Local Nature Reserve Management Committee. Accordingly, we are asked to fill the 1 remaining vacancy. So can I have nominations? Councillor Meakin, thank you.
We nominate Councillor Ian Gold.
And a seconder? Councillor Vaughan. Councillor Duff, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to second Councillor Gold for that position.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, agenda item number 6 is the 2025-26 final revenue budget documents, and our Director of Finance, Mr Lorimer, will introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. Good afternoon. When the Council set the 25-26 revenue budget back in February, there were a number of figures, including a number of components of our grant allocation from the Scottish Government that were best estimates based on the information that was available at that time. In addition to that, there were a number of other budgets that were, for example, the provision for increases in employers' national insurance costs that were held centrally when the budget was set back in February. So this report presents an updated position, the proposed final revenue budget for 25-26. The good news in all of that is that the grant allocation proved to be a bit higher than what we'd estimated by 253,000, and we also expect to have a little bit of headroom within the provision that was made for those employers' national insurance cost increases. In both of those instances, we're proposing to add those figures or those additional monies to the corporate budget contingency for now, and available to be drawn upon should any of the multiple budget risks that we face require to be dealt with. So the report asks the Council to approve those changes and to publish the final revenue budget volume on the Council's website, and those budgets would become the budget that each directorate would manage to, and we would monitor against for the remainder of the year. Happy to take any questions, Provost.
Thank you, Mr Lorimer. Any questions of Mr Lorimer? No. Any comments? Councillor Duff, thank you.
Just to say, happy to support the proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have the recommendations. There are 4. Note, agree, agree and approve. Is the support agreed? Thank you very much. Agenda item number 7 is the Scottish Government consultation draft statutory guidance for public bodies, putting the climate change duties into practice, and Ms Patterson is going to introduce this. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. This report provides information on the consultation response submitted to the draft statutory guidance for public bodies, putting the climate change duties into practice. Quite a long title there. The consultation was undertaken by the Scottish Government, who were seeking views to help inform new statutory guidance for public bodies to support those duties and putting them into practice. This is a retrospective report just due to the insufficient time to take a draft response to committee prior to the deadline date of the 23rd of May, and all the relevant consultations that were required as part of the process for consultation responses to a policy were included as part of that. The Climate Change Scotland Act 2009 places duties on public bodies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and contribute to the delivery of the Scottish National Adaptation Plan and to act in the most sustainable ways. These duties are known as the public body's climate change duties, and members may recall that very complex table that comes to full council once a year. The new guidance aims to take a much more holistic approach to putting these climate change duties into practice by introducing broader functions and wider linked benefits to health and well-being, biodiversity and equalities. Overall, the content of the proposed new guidance was really good, very thorough, and includes illustrative worked examples and case studies to refer to for further understanding of officers to how to implement parts of the guidance. The Council is already complying with parts of the guidance, but some further work will be required to identify gaps and subsequently how we can put measures in place to fully comply. The only slightly negative comments for the proposed new guidance that we included within the response were around the resource implications and the capacity of already stretched climate change teams across local authorities in Scotland to implement parts of the new guidance. Since the guidance was thorough, it is very long, and apologies for the length of the papers. We did request, in addition, in our response, that a summary document be produced by Scottish Government for communicating with elected members and other officers. Thank you, Provost. Happy to take any questions, and I have my colleague Karen Webster on the call.
Thank you very much, Ms Patterson. Any questions? No? Comments? Councillor Whiteside, thank you.
Thank you, Provost. And I just wanted to say I thought the response was really excellent with all the worked examples. It was really good to see specific mention on page 319 of the Angus Public Infrastructure Fund. That was something that was introduced during the last budget by the SNP administration at the time. And I just hope that this is fully supported going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Councillor Cowdy, thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to thank officers for the work on this because it is a very long and complex report. And I welcome your ask for a summary because this is the kind of thing that is so important. But in the great scheme of everyone having a limited amount of time, reading a 300-page report is not ideal. So yeah, if you can keep leaning on them in that respect, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one online either. Okay, the report is, there's 3 recommendations and they're all to note. Do we agree this report? Thank you very much. Now, members, we have at number 8 is the Brechin Recovery and Regeneration. We have agreed to hear a deputation, and we have today with us Pipe Major Craig Black and the chairperson of the Pipe Band, Karen Dillon. So if you would like to both come forward to these 2 seats there. You have 10 minutes and you can split the time if you want. I will remind you when you have 1 minute left, and I'd also like to remind elected members at the end there may be questions, and members it's questions to the deputation only, not the officers at this stage. So thank you.
Thank you, Provost, and good afternoon, elected members. So my name is Craig Black. For the last 28 years, I've had the privilege of being the Pipe Major of City of Brechin Pipe Band. We were founded in 1978 and are proud to be the oldest civilian pipe band in the UK, which means in just 3 years' time we will be celebrating our 150th anniversary as a pipe band, which is a milestone not just for the band but for Brechin's cultural heritage. Some of our previous members have made history, like Charles Clark, who was a previous Pipe Major, and Jim Mackay, both serving members of the Black Watch, who played at JF Kennedy's funeral. And more recently, in February 2024, we received the Certificate of Recognition from the Scottish Government, recognising our status as the oldest civilian pipe band. We are a self-funded organisation, relying on annual fundraising and community support to remain sustainable. We currently have 25 competing members and more than 15 learners in tuition from varying in ages. In fact, we've had a bit of tuition that we've actually had to start a waiting list. We actually just don't have space to take anyone else on at the moment. All our tuition is provided by our volunteers and is free of charge to make sure that we are catering for everyone in our society. Our learners not only develop the ability to play an instrument, but also learn to read music, march, and develop life skills, including discipline, confidence, and social skills by becoming a team member. In the last year and a half, we have started competing again after a break of 10 years. We We have won or have been placed in several competitions around Scotland in our current grade, which is 4B, a testament to the commitment and quality of our members. Last year, with our current band, we competed at the World Championships in Glasgow, and when we formed up in the line, more than half of our pipe corps had been taught by the band itself, and had never competed at this daunting event before. In the past, former members of our band have gone on to win in Grade 1 at the Worlds, and another former member, is now the pipe major of one of the top bands. My passion is to reclaim the World Championships at Grade 4B level, which we won in 1998. Our presence at competitions and local events helps put Brechin on the map and brings pride to our community. We also support the Brechin pageant and lead the parade on Remembrance Sunday. And once a year we put on our annual solo piping and drumming competition in the Brechin Community Campus. Last year we had 130 competitors from all over the country, I think with 2 from as far away as Tobermory. For over 70 years we've leased the hall at the Inch Park, which all the members of Brechin community know as the Pipe Band Hall, contributing more than £60,000 in rent to Angus Council over these years. The hall is nestled within the landscaped Inch area next to a large, well-used car park. Should the leisure centre, football pitches or Meikle Mill houses be demolished and the land repurposed, the Pipe Band Hall would still be well situated and fit with any future development of the area. Since Storm Babette, we have faced enormous challenges. We launched a crowdfunder to replace and repair damaged equipment, and along with donations from various businesses and other community groups, we raised just over £11,000 with overwhelming support from the public. In the interim, our friends at Parkview Bowling Club are generously providing us with a temporary practice venue. But the space is very limited there. We don't have any storage there, and don't want to feel like we're taking liberties from them. We hadn't wanted to end our lease of the hall, but we were left with no choice, as we would have had to pay all utility bills as well as our current lease and bills at the bowling club. We have worked closely with community development officers and have explored other vacant properties in Brechin, but I will leave you to imagine the sound of a 25-member pipe band marching and rehearsing at 9:30 on a Wednesday evening. That alone explains why joint facilities or premises near residential areas don't really work. We're not being fussy or inflexible. We understand the financial and logistical challenges faced by the council, but our band has specific needs: space for storage, appropriate acoustics, access to outdoor space for marching practice, and crucially, a location that will not disturb residents. And current vacant properties, unfortunately, do not meet these requirements. We have lived with the risk of flood for 70 years and have a resilience plan for vacating our equipment. We intend to be linked to a resilience group that is setting up in Brechin to get early notice of any future flooding. We have spoken to our insurers about insuring the contents, and there will be no issues there. And we've spoken to the Scottish Flood Forum regarding flood-proofing the building, and we have the information we need to do that. We've also spoken to them regarding insurance for the property, and they feel that although the premium will be higher, we should be able to get insurance. Since finding out the decision was to go to common good consultation for demolishing our home, we have not had an opportunity to discuss options of redevelopment and release or community ownership. We feel that after 70 years of leasing the property, we should have been given some time to consider options, such as considering how safe the property is. Could we support the redevelopment? Could other community organisations take over the vacant element, etc.? So today, we are asking you, the elected members, not to agree to the recommendation to proceed with a common good consultation on demolition. Instead, we respectfully request a 6-month pause, time for us to properly consider options and engage in meaningful dialogue about the future of our home, and consider options such as negotiating a long-term lease, how we can help support the refurbishment, and possibly look at costs for ownership. We would like to work together to find a sustainable solution that supports Brechin's oldest cultural organisation and helps secure another 150 years. So to summarise, nestled within the landscape of the Inch and built from beautiful local stone, our Pipe Band Hall is far from an eyesore. For over 70 years, it has been the beating heart of the City of Brechin Pipe Band, the oldest civilian pipe band in the UK, and a symbol of cultural pride and resilience. As we approach our 150th anniversary, the hall remains central not just to our music, but to our ability to deliver real social outcomes across Angus, teaching young and old, preserving traditional music, and bringing communities together through performance and purpose. In an age when local heritage and community roots matter more than ever, we ask for the opportunity to protect and reimagine the historic space, not to see it lost. We ask for time to work with community development officers, to explore options further, to look at the cost of redevelopment of the inside, and to possibly leverage some of the insurance monies. We would also wish to obtain the surveyor documents or get time to get our own commissioned so we can understand any structural issues to the building and come back with a plan as how we can work together to repair the inside of the hall. My question is why? Why do you need to demolish when you have a group that has leased for 70 years, are financially sustainable and willing to fundraise and bid for funding and occupy this historic property for hopefully another 70 years? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Black. Are there any questions to Mr Black? Councillor Proctor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr Black, Pipe Major Black. Some of the name you mentioned, Charlie Clark, a good friend of mine. Have you looked in depth at other venues in Brechin that you could maybe use? I presume you maybe had a look through at that. And have you considered the long-term implication of taking on that problem?
Yes, so we looked at, we met with Sandra Livingston, and we had a look at the old social work department in Brechin and the old county court buildings in Brechin, both of which are right in residential areas for a start. The social work department didn't have a room big enough for a full band to practice. There was a lot of small rooms that were ideal for teaching and for storage, but not a big enough room for an actual band practice. And the old county court buildings, similar. There was a room that might have just been big enough. We were advised that it was in quite a state of disrepair. And when we looked at it, it looked like it needed an awful lot of work done to it. Didn't feel it was very suitable for our needs. And again, it's in a street where there are residential properties. I don't know how many of you would like to be sitting in your house at 9:30 on a Wednesday night hearing the pipe band. Some of you maybe would, but probably not many. As far as the long-term implications, yeah, we realise that there is the risk of future flooding, and as I say, we've spoke to the Flood Forum, we've taken advice from them as to what we could do to prevent further damage to the building if we were to be back using that building again. We basically we need our independence back. We're using the bowling club. We have to rely on somebody to come and open up, somebody to come and lock up. If we want to have an extra practice, we've got to ask if that's available. Whereas before, we were the only group using the hall. We could use it any night. If we needed to stay a bit longer, we could stay a bit longer. If we needed to go earlier, we could go earlier. Same with fundraising events. We could hold a fundraising event in there without having to ask anywhere to book.
Could I just say as well, no, I've gone blank now. We have looked at commercial properties as well, but obviously the lease is way out with us. It's all about storage as well, all our equipment. We have coped with floods before. Every time we get a flood warning, we move all our equipment. Obviously with the last flood, we just didn't move it high enough. but we now understand that, and there is a element in the hall that we could put a false ceiling in or a loft area, and when we get a flood warning we would just move everything even higher. We already have flood covers and everything that we put on every time to save our building. So we are aware, you know, we've been through it, we've been there 70 years, so this was just the worst one.
Thank you very much both for your answers. I'm just in the process of restarting the Black Watch Association pipe band, so I know exactly what you're going through. Thank you.
Councillor Brace, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation there. To me, the really important thing is the pipe band rather than the hall. You've been on the go for 150 years. You've only been in those premises for a mere 70. But Angus Council is your landlord of the Common Good Fund, and we have, as far as I'm concerned, a duty of responsibility to make sure that you do find new premises. Now, your current hall, it sits in common good land. That means that the building belongs to the common good, the Brechin common good. It does not belong to Angus Council. It does not belong to the people of Angus. It belongs to the people of Brechin. That's your home. I don't know if it's suitable anymore, the idea that every time there's a flood warning you have to rush down and stack things up. I think it would be better if you could find other premises. It would be better if they could be in an existing building that's surplus to the council or someone else's requirements. I know that you've checked and you've made thorough examinations and explorations, and you've not got anywhere yet. I'm wondering, though, just how much support have you got, and have you actively tried to raise more funds, etc.? Are you in the process of doing that at this moment?
We have had some support from the council, and we've looked at any available buildings within Brechin. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of buildings in Brechin that are council owned, and there's certainly none that are suitable. We've managed for years with flood warnings and moving stuff. I don't really know. We haven't really pursued further fundraising because we've been in a bit of limbo, not knowing what's been happening. We had initially raised money to insulate the hall and stuff before the floods came. So we had money aside, and then we've had our crowdfunding and donations to try and get us back on our feet. We still have all that money, obviously, but as for future fundraising, we're up for anything. We can fundraise, and we would fundraise if it was necessary. We just need, in an ideal world, a perfect building in a perfect site, but unfortunately at the moment we don't have that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you both very much for coming along today. That was really helpful, and I'm really blown away by how many young people are taking up piping. It's just incredible to see the talent that we've got in our schools. I wondered if you could describe to us where the flood came up to on the building, for those of us who are maybe not as familiar with it as others, and what sort of damage was done to it, and any potential future insurance, would that be predicated on putting in internal and external mitigations? Thanks.
So from the photos you see on the screen just now, those white windows on the car park side, that was how high the water was inside the building. Our own contents insurance for our equipment stipulated that we had to have stuff lifted off the floor a minimum of 8 inches. We had stuff on top of tables, and obviously the extent of the flooding just, was unprecedented, as we all know, and we were relatively lucky, I would say, and I said this all along. At the end of the day, it's a practice hall. It's not somebody's home. People lost everything, and I really feel for them. As far as our losses, we were quite lucky with. So We had a cupboard where the spare uniforms were kept, and you could see the water line on the door was literally an inch below the bottom of a kilt. We were very lucky. I mean, a kilt is £350. So we were lucky in that sense. We lost, I think, 4 drums, which are probably about £300 or £400 each. We had boxes that had, the force of the water had knocked them off the table, and they were filled with water. They had various parts of equipment, chanters. As far as the building was concerned, there was wooden floors in the main hall. Once the water subsided and things started to dry out, the floors were started to warp. They all had to be lifted. I know the last time I was in there before we gave up the lease, so all the floors were lifted. The walls were stripped back to the brickwork, 8 feet high, but above that was covered in mould. So we're well aware that if we did have to, if we were to go back in there, all that would have to be removed anyway. Sorry, what was your further question?
Any mitigations that insurers would require you to do? Thanks.
So I think, let's say, our previous policy stipulated we had to have things a minimum of 8 inches above the floor. As Karen said, we would look to put storage higher up. We'd have permanent storage, I think, higher up if we could, to save having to move stuff in the event of a flood. And then obviously we would look to have the flood barriers on the doorways. We did have, so there's vents. Again, I don't think you can see them. Maybe just on the top photograph there, you can see there are vents along the bottom of the building. We have covers to put on them. They're like rubber faced, and they screw on to stop ingress of water. We had them on. We didn't have, at the time, we didn't have the door barriers, unfortunately. Not to say that that would have stopped a flood of that extent anyway. So no, we're well aware that we would have to take measures. I think you said that they'd provide the things for putting down the toilets to stop water coming back up that way through the drainage as well.
Yeah, we've met with the flood forum people, and we know about non-return valves and all this on all the entry-exit points and stuff. So we are aware of what would be involved in trying to mitigate a flood again.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Provost. I understand the reasons why some of the surplus council buildings would be not suitable because of the proximity to residential properties and things. I'm just wondering, have you considered or approached the people that are looking after the cathedral at the moment as a possible venue to house yourselves, because it's quite far out the way, and I know that when they've had big concerts and things on there, that there hasn't been much in the way of complaints of noise. So from a noise aspect, perhaps that might be an option. Is that something you've looked at or considered or thought about?
It's not a group I've been aware of, if I'm being honest. We can certainly look into that. I don't know, playing inside a church isn't ideal. I know there's the hall. The hall again. There are residential properties round about there.
As well, we need the space for, like, when we practice on a Wednesday night, we have learner drummers who are at the moment in the kitchen of the bowling club. We have learner pipers who are at the one end of the one room in the bowling club, and then we have the band practicing as well. We need separate areas to be able to encourage these kids on, because they can't hear when we're all in one room. We need separate locations to train these kids up.
Yeah, I know it's probably hard to see from the photographs, but what the hall consisted of was a main hall, and then outside of there was another 2 smaller rooms and a kitchen. So we often had people teaching in the 2 smaller rooms, sometimes a table in the kitchen, sometimes a table in the hallway as well, and then we had the main hall where the band could be playing or teaching in there as well.
I totally take your points there. I was invited to a tour of the cathedral round about when it closed. And within the square tower, there are various different floors within that where they used to have, I think they did the Sunday school and they did a couple of other things. So there is separate bits within the cathedral. It's not just the whole part there. So I would maybe suggest having a chat with the people from the Friends of the Cathedral and maybe go and visit it yourself and see if that might be a feasible option for you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you for your presentation. That building's not particularly familiar with me. Was your lease on the whole property?
No, so about half of it. So, again, hard to tell from the... So, if you look on the side of the building there, where the actual stonework finishes, that's probably about... From there to this end, that's what we leased. The other half was used by Parks Department for storing lawnmowers and various equipment.
Yeah, we're possibly, if we get the go-ahead and we can work this out, the far end, we were hopefully going to use that as a future project for further development to expand the hall due to our numbers. But alternatively, it's been suggested to us that we maybe speak to the men's shed, who are also possibly looking for a location, and maybe seeing if we could get the men's shed into the other end. But that's way down the line. That's just future thought. That's why we're asking for a delay.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you for that. It was just, obviously, we're not talking about if it's when, with regard to flooding. And obviously, as the building is whole and only part of it was used in the condition it's in, it would be, you know, you can only flood-proof so much. And if you have one area that's effectively vacant, how do you look after that? How do you stop water coming from that side if you could? And obviously, it would be the reality of, would you want to encourage other groups to come to an area that's at such high risk? It's that to me, as a long-term future, wouldn't seem overly viable, given the fact that this will flood again. We just have to be honest about that.
Respectfully, I realise it will flood again. It has flooded several times over many years we've been in there, but never to the extent it's flooded this time. I just feel like there's going to have to be something done in this area for other houses and stuff down there. So, I mean, surely we'll be protected by whatever's there, and if not, well, we'll cope. We've coped before. You know, we'll put practices in place to make sure we cope.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duff. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Provost, and thanks for the presentation. So just to summarise, your position is you would like to stay in the hall you currently are in, and you're prepared to take the risk of protecting your equipment, and you're also prepared to pay increased insurance because of the risk. Essentially, that's your position. I've been clear, but you're not renting the whole hall. There's obviously other users in the hall, the Parks Department. Okay, so you really want to stay there. That's your position, and you'd like a 6-month delay in demolition while we can look at options, etc. Clearly, that begs a further question we'll have to put to officers, but that just so I understand your position, that would be great. That's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gavin Nicholl, online. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. It's obvious that this hall and the site is ideal for the pipe band, but it's the flooding that we've problems with, and the damage to the building. Are we really holding a gun to the pipe band's head to force them into big expense, and then a flood comes along and they've still got problems? Would the pipe band be still willing to work with the consultation, putting their ideas forward, so it's not totally out of the way to be sorted? Just
Didn't quite catch the end of that, but we're happy to work with. I mean, communities have helped us quite a lot. and we're happy to continue to work with them in whatever capacity it takes. I mean, ideally, we'd like some independence. Not entirely against having a shared hall, but what that does mean is if we decided we needed to have an extra night, you know, that causes problems. Whereas if you've got your own place, any night you want, basically.
Especially in competition season, when
Yep.
we're needing extra practice running up to big competitions as well. It causes problems with security, because with our own hall, all our kit was stored down there, so when we're going to competition, the bus turns up, we load the bus. At the moment, kit is in everybody's houses. Gazebos have to be brought in, whoever's got the biggest car, you know, whereas when we had our own hall, it was all there. If we share, then there's security issues, you know, because obviously our kit's worth a lot of money. I'm not saying that would be a problem, but I'm just saying these are all the sort of things we have to look at.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for questions to the deputation? Councillor Proctor.
Right, a supplementary.
Yes, of course.
Have you actually considered maybe moving to a locality outside Brechin, you know, where it's safer and everything else? And what I'm thinking about, and I understand the logistics, you're talking about kids and stuff, but what about Ingalls Memorial Hall up in Edel, which has got everything that you require? It's got rooms, and it's got a big central place where you can practice with the pipe band. And I mean, that's just as Councillor Gregg said, you know, wee bit outside the box. He's talking about cathedral. I think the main cathedral acoustically wouldn't suit, but the other things he suggested probably would. But the Ingalls Hall is a building. It's looking for a purpose at the moment.
I just think we're City of Brechin pipe band. We should be in Brechin, and we've got a lot of local kids. It's difficult getting kids to further out places, you know, especially if you're on a tight income, may not have a car. Buses are not 100% reliable. We do run in the evenings, so, you know, we're trying to bring the kids of Brechin on here that maybe can't travel, can't do these sort of things. That's why everything we do is free to support them, because, you know, some of these kids will never learn to play an instrument, never learn to read music, whereas we're giving that to them.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Black. Ms. Dillon, you can retire to your... Oh, sorry. All right, okay. Nope. Yes, of course it is.
Yeah, sorry, the photos on screen you see now are just, there's some photos of practice sessions and some of our younger members out fundraising and competing as well, and at local events.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, members, we'll now go to the report, and we'll ask, I think it's Mrs. Faulkner that's going to introduce this. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost, and good afternoon, elected members. The report before you today provides an update on the progress of work since the report to Communities Committee on the 26th of November 2024, and sets out recommendations to further advance work to deliver flood protection improvement and the future development of Brechin and the River Street area. One of the key recommendations in the report to Communities Committee in November last year was to set up a steering group chaired by the Communities Committee convener, with local Brechin members and relevant officers from our recovery group. The steering group was set up to oversee the appraisal process of options arising from the 2 technical reports in relation to flood protection and housing options, detailed in the report to Council on the 7th of November 2024, and also to oversee engagement activities and plans. The operational group, led by Jill Patterson, developed a shortlist of options, and a number of meetings of the steering group were held to consider these, including a workshop to look at the options in more detail. The steering group met to consider the recommendations proposed to go forward in the report to Council, and they were endorsed for presentation to committee today. This includes adopting a phased approach to community engagement, reflecting the different strands of work that will be undertaken. Contact with the community has been maintained to ensure continuation of its ongoing wellbeing and recovery in the form of wellbeing checks, drop-in sessions, resilience sessions, updates on Engage Angus platform and newsletters. This report now seeks endorsement of the recommendations outlined in Section 3, arising from the work of the steering group that refined the range of options around housing and the flood protection scheme for public engagement. In addition, recommendations are made regarding the Inch Leisure Centre, adjacent storage building and AstroTurf football pitch, and the vacant Meikle Mill block of flats. In Section 7, the report also outlines the financial implications associated with design work, demolition work and housing revenue account costs. It's important to note that the next steps outlined in Appendix 3 represent the initial phase of activity and engagement with the community to allow the development of detailed options appraisals for the Brechin Riverside area, and for these to be presented for consideration by the appropriate committee. These actions represent the first phase of more in-depth engagement with the local community and other stakeholders to help shape long-term, locally informed decisions about the future of Brechin in line with the framework approach to place-based working approved by Council in June 2024. I have officers from the Brechin Recovery Group here with me today, and we will be happy to take your questions. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Mrs Faulkner. Questions? Councillor Beattie, thank you.
Thank you, Provost. I think this is really a question for Jill Patterson. Can you maybe clarify why we feel that we need to do the design work on the flood protection scheme and the gravel bar work now, rather than after the consultation?
Thank you, Councillor Beattie. The recommendation in the report is really to start and move forward. So I think there's a concern that if we were to await the results of the consultation, and given the sheer number of complexities and interdependencies of those, we could be some months down the line and then have to start and look at a design work which would take a number of other months before we got to that position. So it's to allow us to move fairly quickly, in that we would have an understanding of more detailed costs of what would be required in terms of the flood protection scheme uplift. We would have the work undertaken, and we'd also be able to, whilst we're undertaking that engagement with the community, start to engage with them about what that might look like. So it's a half-metre uplift on the scheme, so there's an opportunity there to really speak to people and get their views on how they feel about that, because there are some visual implications and changes required as part of that. So there's a real benefit in taking those forward, and as outlined in the report as well, at this point in time we do have access to
paper is the demolition, obviously, to the pipe band hall, or the hall that's there. And however, if the proposed demolition will be subject to statutory consultation, and the pipe band group and others will have the opportunity to put forward their representations. So yes, they will be part of that consultation if it goes ahead.
Councillor Bell, thank you.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you for the report, Sharon. I just wanted a wee bit of clarity for the public as much as for myself around the recommendations 1 and 2. If we're discounting a full managed retreat, recommendation 2 feels like a softer retreat, but my concern is around the safety and security of the residents who remain, as fewer and fewer properties will be occupied, and what we're doing to protect them and the integrity of the remaining buildings for their safety, for public safety, and to avoid attracting any vandalism. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. I'm going to ask Claire Greenhill just to come forward and talk about the work that she's been doing around consultation with the residents.
Thanks, Councillor Bell, for your question. In terms, firstly, around the safety and the ongoing safety issues, we're aware of the level of vandalism that's been going on down there. We've been reluctant to look at Cytex, etc., down there, just because the metal shuttering isn't the most appealing, but we're going to, following committee today, we're going to make contact with Cytex to look if there's any other alternatives to just metal Cytex, particularly around Meikle Mill, to make that building more secure. As part of our tenant engagement, we are due to, we are ready to go and commence with that. We will be looking and exploring with people again, how they feel about the options that have been discussed. Has it changed anything for them? Are they looking to move? We've got a couple of people who are left in blocks on their own, and we've been engaging with them about whether they want to move now, and we will support that move now. And we'll also support that move now for anybody else that's looking at that situation at the current time. We'll also continue to engage with our enforcement team around, they've been doing some walkabouts in the area, etc., and we meet with the local police regularly as well to update them in regards to that level of vandalism.
Thank you. Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Provost. I want to go back to the pipe band situation. I think everybody knows how passionate I am about music, and certainly young people and music. So I really hope that not only are they consulted, but there is an opportunity perhaps for a community asset transfer. Now, I know that's complex when it's common good, but I've listened to them, and I know that there's precious few places right across Angus for groups like this in appropriate places. So I hope that they can get that opportunity, and for us to hold back on the demolition of that particular building. I don't know just how we can put that into words in recommendations, but I hope that this is feasible in some way. I look to you for wording, perhaps on number 6, just to take out the adjacent storage building, but also where it says statutory common good consultation, maybe to add in the possibility of community asset transfer for the pipe band.
We'll finish the questions and then we'll come back to that, Councillor Devine, if that's okay. Councillor Braze, thank you.
I kind of need to hear the answer to Lynn's question, but I can, what I'm concerned about in this, we've been waiting, it's a long time now since Storm Babette, and we really need to start pressing on, but I'm really concerned that the City of Brechin Pipe Band is an institution that's woven into the very fabric of Brechin, I think more than anything else that I can think of. And that the absolute heartbreak that was caused that night, heavily involved in the Bravo group, and we were down cleaning out our store and lost just about everything that Bravo owned that night. And I know just how hard it is to get back from that. So my question to officers is, if this report is agreed as it is today, we go into consultation because it's common good land, when would you expect to start demolishing that pipe band hall?
Councillor Brace, there's a process to be followed. I'm going to ask Marie Callender just to advise members on the detailed common good process so that I don't get it wrong. Marie, thank you if you can assist. Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
Yeah, so it's a common good property, the band hall, and there's a consultation required and there's approval required for doing this. How long do you expect all that to take if we agree to this today? Can you give us an estimate of the date that work would start on demolition?
So all we're agreeing today is the proposal to go out to consultation on the prospect of demolition. So the decision to demolish has not been made today. It's been made subject to consultation. So we will now go out for an 8-week statutory consultation. The results of that consultation, if there is unresolved negative responses, will come back to committee to then make a decision, to then consider and decide what they want to do. So at that point, alternatives could be presented if that has come out as part of the consultation. So the decision to demolish isn't made today, it's not made until a future committee report. So that does not prevent any sort of asset transfer being put in the meantime.
Right, so that was the bit I was wanting to get to. The City of Brechin Pipe Band can apply right now for a community asset transfer. What effect does that have on the process that this council's seeking to start on? Are you saying that would run concurrently?
So up until the point that we make the decision to demolish, to proceed with that demolition, up until that point, any group could come forward with a community asset transfer, and we would need to pause our decision at that point to consider the transfer request that had come in.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got a supplementary question. Well, it's not supplementary, it's a different question.
That's okay, Councillor Brace?
Yes, you know, if there was a community asset transfer, what sort of issues would this cause for whatever we are doing with that site for the whole process? I mean, what I'm trying to get at here basically is if that pipe and hall remains standing there, what effect does it have on us as a council? It would in some way limit us to what we do with that whole land down there, or would
Mr. Daly is probably best placed to answer that question.
Councillor Brace, from a practical side, physically it wouldn't prevent demolition of the other structures around there. I'm quite confident from experience being involved in other projects, demolition projects, that it would be feasible to do that. But it does beg the question, if we're mobilising a contractor to come on site to demolish, it's far more economic to obviously demolish when the contractor is mobilised, and it doesn't really make sense to come in, demolish all other structures and potentially bring a contractor back again at a later date to demolish this other. So I think while there was uncertainty around whether the hall and the parts storage building, while there was uncertainty, we would probably look to delay bringing on that contractor in just because of the economies of scale in terms of bringing a contractor in.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor One, then Councillor Duff, and after that we have another 4 members.
Been up for a while.
Okay, because I've got Councillor Cheap after Councillor Duff. Actually, I noticed Councillor Duff first, but okay. Councillor Cheap.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm standing back a little bit from all of this and listening to the debate on it, and I do start to wonder though whether we're kind of getting the cart before the horse here, because really, if our responsibility here as well is to defend Brechin as much as possible from future flood risk. And you know, to take away, I have no problem taking away the, Councillor Beattie kindly took me right around the site previously after Stormabet flood, and saw the implications of it all. But clearly the sports centre and the AstroTurf is short, and that needs to go. But the age of that building and its history and use, I'd be wanting to protect that as much as possible. And I think if we should be looking at actually putting a flood defence in there that is appropriate, that will allow for the future use of buildings like that. Even in the question of Meikle Mill, you know, just saying demolish it because of what's happened with Stormabet. But what are we actually doing that if we're not putting forward a practical flood defence system that will not have the same implications as previously? So I agree with what Councillor Devine and has started off saying, and Councillor Bayes as well, because I was going to say earlier on when the Brechin pipe band were discussing and asked, you know, have they considered a community asset transfer? Because I think that's what they are actually looking to do, to get long-term use out of all of that. So my question really here is, are we making decisions too early on demolition here, and actually not looking at implementing the correct flood defence scheme that will mean we don't require to demolish buildings unnecessarily, just get rid of the ones that are past the point of no return?
Mr. Daly, is that a question for you? Is that a question, Councillor Cheap?
I suppose, Provost, the question is at the very start. We're not dealing with the cart before the horse here. Why demolish initially when we need to get the right flood protection scheme in place that may not require so much demolition?
Through yourself, Convener, I'll try my best to best I could do is provide some context and on this. This was discussed with the steering group in terms of how we progress matters, and the hall was included in knowledge that this structure will be prone to flooding in the future, that we were demolishing other structures in the surrounding location. Therefore, we had the opportunity to also demolish this, and we have the opportunity through the settlement from the insurer to demolish it using that settlement figure, and to create an extended area of open space that provides opportunities for future use. I think that's summarising my understanding of the conclusion the steering group reached, and hence the reason officers have included this in the report. The only thing I would add to that, Councillor Cheap, and I know it's been said before but by my colleague Barry Callender, is what's been recommended today isn't demolition. It is to go out for statutory consultation, where there'll be the opportunity to bring forward these points, and if there is an unresolved representation objection, then it would be brought back in front of members to make a decision on this. So I think it's worth just highlighting that point again to members.
Provost, can I just ask one final question just to sum up my ramble?
Of course.
It's really, can I ask Mr. Daly then in that case, are we suggesting here building a flood defence scheme that we do not think will be able to defend a flood? We are practically saying that we expect Brechin to continue to flood regardless of what we put in place as a potential flood defence scheme.
I think it's important to realise that we can't eliminate the risk of flooding. So absolutely, and not just in Brechin, the other flood engineering solutions we put in place, yes, it does provide a higher degree of protection. It doesn't prevent flooding. The term we've used is that we can't build our way out of this problem. We can increase, as I said, help provide a higher degree of protection, but what we do know is that due to the impacts of climate change, is that the likelihood and the severity of flooding, all the modelling shows that's increasing. So therefore I think it would be very wrong in any way to suggest that we could put in place a flood protection scheme that is going to eliminate the risk of flooding, Hopefully that the report makes that clear, and I would just reference when the recommendation report is that we are not recommending we proceed with a replacement of the flood protection scheme, so we cannot eliminate the risk of flooding in Brechin or any area really.
Ms Patterson, did you want to come in?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Cheap. I thought it would be useful just to maybe outline some of the discussions through the operational group, where we've kind of considered all the nuances between all the sheer myriad, I think, of options that were on the table to try and get a shortlist to bring to Council today. I think where we've looked at that is kind of the programme and timeline, and where we can sort of twin track things and create some efficiencies. So specifically looking at the demolition of buildings, it's actually structural issues with Meikle Mill that have been the driving factor behind that coming into it as an equation. As part of the options, it wasn't anything looked at through either of the two technical reports. There's internal structural walls have been removed by a tenant from that property. It is beyond repair, and the recommendation from that group was actually, if we are looking at things in and around the inch, there are some efficiencies. It's been a difficult building to let, and housing colleagues, if required, can provide more detail on that. So that appeared on the table. I think my colleague Mr Daly's covered the specifics around the flood protection scheme uplift in terms of, you know, we're unable to eliminate risk, but we can significantly improve the levels of protection and reduce that risk. And it would protect against another Storm Babette, but we cannot eliminate the impacts of climate change, which continue to see increases in severe weather events and increases in river flow rates, etc., right across Scotland.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Vaughan, then Councillor Duff, and after that we still have another 4 members. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. A lot of what's actually been asked was my question, but really I just want to highlight here it is just purely a consultation that we're going out for. There's no progress or demolition here, so the Brechin group do have time to consider their position, as we've already heard. We keep going round in circles, and I think the same question has been asked again, hence the reason I won't ask the question. So, you know, I think the memo today is that if you are interested in it, you probably want to work with the council and look to try and progress some kind of common good or community asset transfer. I would, however, stress that this area is, as you well know, a flood area, and whether that's a decision you need to take more seriously, then that's down to yourself. But today we're only being asked to agree consultation, not demolition, so I think there is a bit of time. Thank you.
Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Yeah, I mean, we are discussing the building that the pipe band are in, and I mean, I kind of wanted some sort of technical view as to how badly it's damaged, what it's going to cost to demolish, and, you know, is refurbishing it a viable option, and bearing in mind that it's not exclusively let to the pipe band, but we've also got our own parks department in it, so they're not taking the whole building, and you know, is not demolishing it a viable option? I mean, I'd take Mr Daly's point that he doesn't want to mobilise contractors twice. That would obviously be an additional cost, but even is it sensible to renovate a building of that age that has been badly flooded? Is that a sensible proposition anyway? I take the fact that the pipe band want to stay there, but some people have suggested that there are other locations. It's hard to think that another location couldn't be found in a suitable place, but I just want to know about the technical, how bad is the building, what is the view on whether we could we save the building? That's effectively what I'm asking.
Yes, the short answer is yes, we can reinstate the building, but it would be in the knowledge that it will be prone for flooding again due to excavation, which we all know. The costs are probably comparable with demolition, though I would like to just confirm that before saying for definite. I think it's important as well, maybe worth pointing out this, there isn't actually a lease on this building. The lease with the Brechin pipe band was terminated in October 2023, Timestorm Babette, so it is currently a vacant. As mentioned, our Parks Department use it for some limited storage, but it is essentially a vacant building just now. So yes, it can be reinstated. It is feasible to do that. It would cost money. In the same way, if we reinstated and it did flood again, it would cost to reinstate it. But yeah, as I said at the beginning, yes, there is the option instead of demolish to make it fit for return by any party.
Councillor Clark, thank you.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you for the people that brought this delegation. If I heard you properly, you mentioned yourselves, Mr. Black, and correct me if I'm wrong, about a stay of execution, perhaps about 6 months. I wrote that down. Is that right? Right. Thank you. Following on from that, I'll keep my emotions to one side because a bit like Councillor Devine, I greet every time I hear pipes. So I'll put that to one side and try and be as practical as I can. Councillor Wan summed up quite a bit there for me, right across what I was thinking. That often happens to me in the middle of a meeting. So I'll have to listen to what he's saying. But I would say that when we come back from this, from the consultation, and I'm listening to Mr. Daly there because he's got to order everything in and get that all organised. When we come back from that, I see that as almost a feasibility study as well, for these people to have somewhere for that, because that is a Scottish institution right in the middle of Brechin. So I would be out there marching to make sure they got something. But it might not be there because it's not just a building, it's the ground on which it is. We as elected members are often asked about anything in common good. We're asked about quite a bit, in fact. It's just a pity we couldn't be asked about this and we couldn't manage to stop climate change. You cannot stop it. Cannot stop what's happening. We have to be practical about that. So I have to put my faith in the consultation, and I do put my faith in it. So I have to wish you all the very best, but we have to do our very best for that pipe band. It's got to go somewhere. Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd, question?
Thanks, Convener. Again, thanks for the delegation. It really brought a picture of what you're facing, and you know, from listening, what I picked up was that that building really suits your needs. You know, it's really well suited to what you do. I think that was important for you guys to get across to us today. So thanks for that. And you know, and just listening to the whole thing, like the fact you have to raise your stuff up for flooding, climate change is going to get worse. That, you know, that's the forecast of things. I think, you know, after such a strong delegation, you know, I think, is it right to have you guys in a floodplain like that? You know, like, I'd love to see a solution where that building could perhaps be recreated somewhere else in Brechin on another bit of land. A building's a building. We can replicate a building. So I suppose my question to officers is there an option that building can be reconstructed somewhere else in Brechin, perhaps along with the community or in partnership with the council, something like that? Thank you.
I think it might be my colleague next to me who might be better placed in a part, but I think it does depend on land availability. I think in terms of can it be done, well, yes, absolutely. You know, we can construct. There would be obviously the financial, how we would fund this. We need a lot of consideration, but I think possibly the biggest challenge is the location and the availability, and I'll invite my colleague Jill Patterson to come in.
I think the challenge is that particular building is a historical asset. I think the pipe band hall explained that quite kind of, you know, the length of time there's been there. So that to actually deconstruct and reconstruct that elsewhere would be a significant cost. So therefore you'd be potentially looking at a much more modern facility, which, you know, In theory, you could have scope to look at something back in the inch that had, you would never eliminate flood risk, but potentially you could have enhanced flood protection measures, raised floors, etc. But there is a cost to that, and the cost is, where does that cost picked up in terms of those significant construction costs to do that? In terms of availability elsewhere within Brechin, it would need to be looking either at land which is within the council's ownership, and then you're up against commercial rates. So one of the options we had looked at in the context of Brechin was our economic development land that we have at Brechin Business Park, but we would be forgoing commercial rates that a community group would be unable to afford. So it's quite difficult when you look at the practicalities of deliverability, and it would require a lot of external funding. So it's not to say no, but it's where those costs are come from to actually support the group to think from what they outlined in their presentation and delegation is the actual independence that they're looking for is helping them to secure, we need to secure the land, secure the cost to undertake a building elsewhere.
Thanks, Provost. I just also wanted to ask if it would be possible, before we go to the recommendations on this paper, just to have maybe a 10-minute recess for members to digest and speak with their groups on what they've heard. I know that I would like that personally, but I don't know about other members. Thanks.
Councillor Stewart, question, please. One final member's question, and then the Chief Executive wants to speak, because I think we've had about 12 questions already, and it needs to be
finished.
Thanks,
Provost.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Wan and Councillor Duff both said pretty much what I was going to be saying. However, I've got a couple of questions for one for Mr. Daly and one for Maria Callender. The Parks Department are currently occupying part of the building. Firstly, do we have somewhere else for them to go? And when Ms. Callender was speaking, she also said if a group comes forward to intimate they would be interested in a transfer, community asset transfer, I think she said it would then put it on hold. Could we get clarification on that and what sort of time scale that would go on hold for? Thanks.
I'll go first. I think mine is more straightforward. Is that yes, our Parks Department have other premises in Brechin, and we have checked that it will be possible to use the other premises for the storage of the materials that are currently there.
Right, there'll be two more questions on the pipe band, and then oh, sorry, Marie.
I can't remember who asked the question. Councillor Stewart. Hi, Councillor Stewart. The question was if a community asset transfer request came in, what the timescales would be for that process. Is that correct?
Well, it was. I think you said that it would put everything on hold. Did you say that?
Yeah. So the way that community asset transfer works is that an application comes in, and because it's a statutory process, we then need to pause. So we wouldn't be able to demolish a building if a CAT came in. We wouldn't then just be able to proceed to demolish the building. So it would need to then go through our statutory process for considering community asset transfer requests. It depends entirely how long that process will take, depending on what the application is and how it needs to be processed. But it would then go into that statutory process and be considered through there.
But that would only be relevant to that particular building?
Yes.
Okay, two final questions, then it'll close down. Councillor Bell and then Councillor Speed.
Thanks. I'm very mindful of the bigger picture in this paper and the lives that have been impacted significantly, but I'm also aware of the passion, the history and the culture around the pipe band, and it's obviously tugging on people's heartstrings. But I just wondered if a CAT is explored, if the building is something that would be considered for the Scottish Land Fund support. And I don't know if any of our officers have any experience of that, because there is public money available, but I'm not sure if the amount of restoration work would hinder that process or application at all. It's just an option for people to consider. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Yeah, I think the whole purpose in the pipe band exploring options would be everything that we'd be looking at to take back. There's a lot of different options around looking for funding. This is an area that the pipe band have actually just started to explore. They had been thinking that they would actually be leasing. So as normal community development, these things take a little bit of time. Hence the reason from them looking for a little bit more time. But through the community asset transfer process, all of that would be taken into place. But it would start from the group looking at their business plan and coming forward through the procedures.
Point of clarification. Can I just check that, as important as the pipe band are, and I appreciate that, but this paper, there's a lot more contained in this paper than the pipe band hall. There's the Meikle Mill, there's the flood defences, there's lots of other bits within that bit. So can I just clarify, which is the sort of the more relevant, important part of this paper? Is it the pipe band hall, or is it the wider Brechin River Street area?
Thank you, Councillor Gregg, for your question. So officers are presenting a report with a number of recommendations. Each of those recommendations are important. Discussion so far has focused somewhat on one particular building, but I would remind elected members that there are other significant proposals and information contained in this report, and a number of colleagues present in the chamber and online to answer any questions you may have on that. I would also like at some appropriate juncture to ask permission for a 10-minute recess to have a further conversation with colleagues as to whether or not there's any scope to amend wording of a particular recommendation to afford improved elected member oversight, or whether further clarification on how that will look going forward can be given to the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I have one more question from a member who's had her hand up for quite some time, so we'll allow that, and then I will call and see if members will agree to a 10-minute recess. Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you. A really strong deputation. The history is remarkable, and I hope moving forward we can support the pipe band and wider community to come up with the right solution. But I think what it has shown is the strength of feeling with regards to that area of Brechin. And it takes me on to my question around people impacted, the tenants and residents whose lives have been devastated by the flooding, all their homes, their belongings. And there may be some of them who struggle with, they'll have already struggled with multiple losses and may struggle again with this next part. And I just wondered what kind of supports, if you could just go into a bit of detail around partnership, working with the Health and Social Care Partnership. There may be psychological support needed in this next phase, and the wider kind of partnership support that we can put in for the people impacted directly in their homes.
Thanks, Councillor Speed. Just in terms of housing's next phase of engagement with its tenants and the residents down there, we are going to be taking a very person-centred and a trauma-informed approach, given what we know about people that, what they've suffered down there. We've already done referrals and been involved with the likes of Penumbra and the mental health hub, etc., for residents and tenants down there, and that will continue. We'll work with the Health and Social Care Partnership and engage with them around, who's open to them at the current time, what services are going in, what other support might be needed, and how we then approach how we interact with each tenant. And how we will do that engagement will be very different for one person than it might be for another, depending on their own personal set of circumstances. So we'll definitely be taking that partnership approach like we've been doing from the outset.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you for those assurances that will continue with the same intensity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, members, for your
Point of
contributions.
clarification.
Yes, Councillor Beattie.
Are we going to have comments before recess, or are we having comments after recess?
We'll have comments after recess.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Members, a 15-minute recess, is that agreed? Thank you. Okay, members, welcome back. And I think Mrs Faulkner is going to say a few words. Thank you.
Yes, we've had a discussion around clarifying recommendation 6 in the report. And the wording would be delegates authority to the Director of Infrastructure and Environment to take forward the process to determine demolition of the Inch Leisure Centre building, adjacent storage buildings and AstroTurf football pitch, subject to negotiated agreement on settlement with insurance, statutory common good consultation, and require a further report to Council on representations and, if required, consent of the Court as outlined in section 5.6.
Thank you, Mrs Faulkner. Comments? Councillor Meehan.
Thank you very much, Provost. We would be happy with that clarification on the wording of section 6. No issues whatsoever. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Provost. I thought it was worth mentioning the briefings that councillors offered to elected members before this meeting. So, giving us the chance to ask questions around about particularly the housing element, but the whole paper, and many questions were asked and answered. Just for the benefit of those maybe watching online, I think that was worth pointing out.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Provost. I've just had a quick word with Craig there in the recess. I think, you know, all three councillors, I'm sure Councillor Beattie and Councillor Nicholl won't mind me saying, you know, we all are well aware of the importance of Brechin Pipe Band to Brechin. You know, they make a significant contribution to our community. It's lovely to see the intergenerational relationships being developed as, you know, the kids learn to play the chanter. However, I think we'll have to be mindful that this is only just one element of it, and realistically, you know, we'll have to think about the people that are actually residing down there, you know, because they live there, and, you know, the Pipe Band Hall is just that, a pipe band hall for practice. So I think, you know, we just need to be mindful of the residents down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Beattie, a comment? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Yeah, as a member of the steering group, I'd just like to thank the other members of the steering group and the officers involved for all the work that they've done so far. This afternoon's debate just shows that every solution seems to bring with it a whole new set of problems. So we recognise there's no easy fix here, and we recognise the wide range and ramifications for other parts of Angus and for other groups. But Councillor Scott is absolutely right. You know, we need to be mindful of the other things in this paper, and we have to protect the people living there, including those who did not directly experience flooding. So, you know, I'd just like to put my thanks out there.
Thank you, Councillor Beattie. Councillor Braze.
Yes, I think my sort of big concern in all this was to make sure that the Brechin City Pipe Band had a clear process as a route forward, and they do. They're aware of that. There are various different things they can do, and if it was to be through a community asset transfer, of course this council is obliged to give them every assistance with that application. And I'm sure we would, but that's entirely up to them. And so my big concern was that I didn't want to see this whole process of the regeneration of Brechin hindered in any way. And I'm quite clear that it doesn't have to be hindered by amending a report or by agreeing to it. I would also like to just say, I think this is highlighted today, just how important delegations from the public are to what the work that this council does. And again, thank them for coming along.
Thank you, Councillor Braze. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks. I think that the wording change to recommendation 6 makes sense. I think everything else has been said. We can parallel track operations, and I think we continue to do what we can. And if the pipe band want to do a CAT, then that's up to them, and that will be considered in due course. So yeah, I think the delegation served a useful purpose, and I think Councillor Whiteside has pointed out that there's been 2 briefings for elected members. last week and this week, where a lot of detailed questions have been answered. So I think I know, I felt I've asked the questions I wanted to do at the one last week. And yeah, I think members have had a pretty good chance to quiz officers about the paper. So I'm happy that we progress on this, the wording put forward by Mrs Faulkner. Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Councillor Duff. I was at the briefing this morning, so it was very useful. Councillor Gavin Nicholl online.
Thank you very much, Provost. I would like to agree with my two fellow Brechin councillors and about the report. Going back to the pipe band, I would love to see them back in their building, but I have great concerns about, can we legally sell them a pig in a poke or a white elephant if this property is going to be a problem? That's my opinion. Cheers.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? No. Okay, well, we have the recommendations in front of us. Oh, sorry, Councillor Boyd.
Thank you, Provost. Yes, it was just to sort of say, I think it's really good that we're giving the pipe band a lifeline. I didn't ask any questions, but it was good to get the chance to get comments. We'll keep the plate spinning for them. There might be others. I'm thinking in our own town, okay, because he's a smaller pipe band than Brechin, but they actually found some farm buildings and work out there literally outside in Pambride. So I have the lilt of pipes being played in Pambride on Mondays and Thursdays, and it's the most loveliest thing to hear. So let's again, within this steering group, find other places in and around Brechin as well. But it's good that they have this lifeline that the officers have come forward with as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Boyd. Anything else? Anyone else?
Yeah, thank you. Just to say, really thoughts are with those impacted as we move forward into this next phase. It was good to receive assurances earlier in terms of that wraparound support for people impacted. And I would also hope that there would be some kind of joint working in terms of some of the policies that are in place when perhaps there is a relocation in terms of housing. It often can impact schooling, transport, and you know, sometimes our policies actually don't kind of match up. So I would hope that there would be support and recognition of all of that as well moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Boyd, do you want to come back in again? Or is that a legacy hand?
That is a legacy hand. My apologies.
That's all right. That's no problem. Anyone else? Okay, we have 8 recommendations. So with the altered wording to recommendation 6, do we agree this report? Agreed. Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Can I ask any members of the public that are sitting here to vacate the chamber now, because there's another item to be considered in private. Thank you.
Can we start the live stream, please?